Thank you for that introduction. I'm really excited to be here for a couple of reasons. Jerry, I mean, you and I, we've been talking for a year and a half, 2 years at this point. So it's great for me to watch you go from those initial conversations about how to get started, how to get some traction, to here you are hosting this event a year later and seeing some familiar faces. My man Lawrence, Rodney, who's actually our most recent guest on our podcast. We've actually rebranded that show to be called Multifamily Insights now, and he's the first person to interview once we decided to make that change. But that episode's live right now, episode 352, I think. Anyway, excited to be here. You know, for those who don't know me, my name is John Casmon. I am a multifamily investor based in the Midwest. So I live in Cincinnati now, but I'm born and raised in Cleveland. I went to school in Dayton. I lived in Detroit. I worked at GM for about 4 or 5 years. I lived in Chicago for about 9 years. So I've been all over the Midwest and got a lot of love for this region of the country. With that said, like many of you, I follow the economic data. I look at the trends. I see all the population growth and all that kind of stuff. And we really like the Southeast region. One, proximity to the Midwest is there. And with me being in Cincinnati, it's really close to get to other parts of Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia, the Carolinas, markets like that. So to give you just a little bit of background, I spent 15 years in corporate America doing marketing and advertising for large brands, Nike, Coors Light, Mountain Dew. And as I mentioned, I was at General Motors for about 4 or 5 years. And during that time frame, I was there when we went through the bankruptcy back in 2008, 2009. And the biggest takeaway for me was, one, as a young professional, I realized that it really didn't matter how good you were at your job. You could never be completely insulated from the market, politics, all those things. And I watched folks who were brilliant in what they were doing get either let go or shipped to places they did not want to go to, just because it was convenient or somebody wanted that place or whatever the case may be. In fact, I saw one person who had worked for the company for 22 years and he got let go when we went through a big round of layoffs. And there was no plan B. He was what they call a lifer. His plan was to work that job until he retired, get his gold watch and all the other stuff that came with it. And that was his plan. And I remember he left a voicemail the day he got let go. And it just troubled me because I walked in late that day because I knew they were doing a bunch of layoffs. And there was a blinking light, for a voicemail indicator on my phone. And I didn't want to check it because I just didn't know what the news was. After about maybe 5 or 10 seconds, picked it up, listened to the voicemail, and it's his voice. And in listening to him, I felt a great sense of empathy because this is a guy who dedicated himself to the company, and, the company let him go because they just need to make some numbers. And I thought about my father, who was a blue collar worker for many years. He's only worked 2 jobs ever. But, he's been on strike before. He's been on strike for a year and a half. And I remember what that was like when, watching him go on strike. And I just had this rush of thoughts. And I remember reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad some years earlier. And my immediate thought was, one, I felt very empathetic for him. And 2, how do I make sure I'm never in this position? And that took me really towards real estate and forced me to figure out how to invest, what investing really was. I didn't know anybody who invested. And by the way, I'm in Detroit in 2008, 2009, probably the most down market you could be in for somebody looking to get into real estate. So I actually waited until I got to Chicago because anyone I knew who had real estate in Detroit was trying to sell it at fire sale prices. So I couldn't contemplate that, everything's on sale. It's like, no, man, this is not where you want to put your money. But fast forward, and for me, we started small. Started with a 2-unit building. I heard somebody, I can't remember who, but someone's trying to get their first, 2 to 4 unit. That's exactly how we started. House hack, lived in 1 unit, rented out the other unit. And it was great for us. It was great because I got to slow walk real estate investing. The numbers weren't quite as important because for me, the only real goal was to not pay what I was paying in rent. I was paying $1,500 in rent. If I could buy a 2-unit building, live in 1 unit, somebody else is paying the bulk of the mortgage, and now I'm only paying $700 or $800 out of pocket. Hey, man, I just made $700 or $800, right? I mean, as far as I was concerned, great, net positive. When you add the equity that I was able to create And keep in mind, this is back in 2012 now. So the market is just now starting to pick up. Well, I had read about how you can make money in real estate, but I had never seen it or experienced it. So for me to buy this property, put about $40,000 or $50,000 worth of work into the property, have the rent of the one unit go from $1,250 up to $1,500, and then my unit we lived in, and we obviously renovated that unit as well. We got an appraisal, and I had created over 6 figures worth of value, 6 figures worth of equity into the property. And that really was the trigger, because that was about what I was making at that time in my salary. So I made a year's worth of my salary in about 9 months, but really I wasn't working those 9 months, right? I mean, I did about a month's worth of work, and then we just held it for 9 months with cash flow and all the other things. So at that moment, I think for me, the path was clear. And then it was just a matter of, I want to do more of this. I don't know what that means. I don't know how I'm going to do more of this, but I'm going to do more of this. And it was just figuring out the next steps. We ended up buying a 3-unit building, about an 8-unit building. I did some flip projects. And what ultimately happened for me was I started running out of my money. And I was getting frustrated at this point, because I was seeing deals that I could take down. But because my wife and I were using our own capital, we couldn't do these deals. So at that moment, I realized I needed to make a change, and ultimately I made some decisions to help us really escalate our business. And ultimately at a point now where we've invested in over $100 million worth of real estate with all of our investing partners as general partners in these deals.
Excellent. So, the story, I think, resonates. And by the way, it's funny when you said when we first talked, because I actually brought me back to when I was very early in the stage of multifamily. I actually was connecting. I would go at lunch and go off. Everybody would go into. I'm like, oh, I'll be right back. I'm going to go, and I would go into this atrium and make some phone calls for and that was, you were one of my first calls. So it was. I actually appreciate that. I remember that. Yeah, and tell me. I guess the big thing is how when you got into multifamily, how you were able to pivot from what you learned in your career and then take that into the multifamily business.
Well, I think multifamily education is really important. And what I mean by that is, for me, part of the process was you have to know yourself. I think it's easy to hear someone like myself, or even you, Jerry, or my man, Rodney, and you hear us talk about our portfolios, what we've done, and, you want to maybe emulate that. And I think part of what's really important is being honest about yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, all those kind of things, and figuring out where your blind spots are, where you need to get stronger, where do you need help? Can you address those weaknesses? Can you hire a mentor or coach to help you navigate that? Can you partner with someone who can help you maybe in areas where you don't have that strength? But how do you address that weakness? Because if you don't do that, you're not going to see the success that you hope to see. And when I was at that pivot point where I kind of left it off, right, what really happened for me was, the 2-unit killed that deal, crushed it, felt like a rock star. 3-unit killed that deal, crushed it, rock star. And from the moment we did the deal, I knew I was going to crush it. And I had zero experience before that 2-unit. But back in 2012, the data points were so obvious that even a novice could see this deal's probably going to work. Let me give you context. That 2-unit deal, first of all, the biggest thing for me was about the location, right? Real estate's all about location. When I launched my podcast, Target Market Insights, it was always geared about finding the best places to invest. And the reason was because that very first property, there was almost a neon sign pointing, saying, this is the place you want to invest in. Chicago, 77 unique neighborhoods. Only one out of 77 distinct neighborhoods, there was only one that didn't lose any value during the last downturn. It was a neighborhood called North Center. Lincoln Park and West Loop and South Loop and all these other neighborhoods you may know, they all went up and down, as you would expect. But North Center had no volatility. So I didn't know anything else But I said, look, if it didn't lose value in 2009, that's probably the safest neighborhood you're ever going to pick. So I just started looking there. I said, hey, we're just going to buy something in North Center. I don't need to know anything else. I'm going to buy a 2 to 4 unit North Center. That's what I did. And then I reverse engineered all the other data points to help me understand why that was such a smart decision. The 3 unit, kind of a similar approach. I had to start expanding. But when I got to the 8 unit property, we bought it. I invested about $130,000, something like that we had saved up for the down payment. And I was depressed. And it was the first time I had ever made an investment and was sad after the investment. It was a good investment. It wasn't sad for that. It was just now I was getting excited and I didn't have my gunpowder, right? I couldn't go out and do another deal. So it was like, do I sit here and wait a year to save up 6 figures so I can go buy another property? When I'm getting people sending me deals now and I feel like I'm getting into a groove, I'm building my confidence. Or how else do you grow? And I was hesitant to work with other people. Just, I don't know. Just in life, I think we're all taught to, build your own, right? We're not really taught to collaborate and partner with others. You go to college, they don't push you to work with the guy next to you, might be better than you. They tell you to do your own work, right? So I was always very hesitant to work with other people. And I just remember sitting in that moment. It was in November. And I sat down with a friend of mine who had started working with partners and really blew up her business. And she just pushed me to say, yeah, you need to start partnering with people. A month later, I had a chance lunch meeting and I ended up meeting the guy who became my mentor and helped me really reshape the way I approached it. I went around the world from your question, Jerry. I didn't forget it, though. I'm going to come back to it. I promise you. So all of that to say, for me, before I could get into the transferable skills from my professional job to get into real estate, I had to understand where my blind spots were. Where was I susceptible to issues or challenges? And one was just experience. While I had some experience, certainly not, I wasn't comfortable bringing on other investors. I'd done 2 deals, right? 3 deals, but third deal was in its infancy. So I wasn't confident to go and have other people invest with me at that point. So bringing on that mentor was critical. And it wasn't necessarily to teach me real estate. And I think that's the thing that people always get wrong. It's not that you need a mentor to teach you the basics of investing, the stuff you might be to learn in a book or listen to podcasts or reading blogs. There are some basic things that are universal. The reason you hire a mentor is to help you understand your blind spots, help you to understand a different way and a different perspective of looking at not just deals, but yourself, a capital stack, how you approach situations to help you get better. In the same way that any star athlete has a coach, you would expect to have somebody who's helping you get better. And if you treat this seriously as a business, as something that you want to do, if you are looking to transition from your professional career into doing this full time, you have to surround yourself with people who can make you better. So I looked at it from that standpoint to say, okay, if this person has been there and done that, they have some skill sets that I can learn from, that I can leverage. They've had some successes. Let me do that. Let me bring on somebody to help me be the best version of myself. What I did well coming into this, I had 15 years, or at that time, I probably had about 10 years of marketing experience. So, or whatever it was, 11 years. So I had marketing experience. I had worked on large campaigns. I had worked with influencers. I understood digital marketing and social media. So I had that knowledge. I had plenty of project management experience. I'm used to work with difficult people. Have you ever worked with creatives? Have you ever worked with somebody who had a vision, something that they dreamed of, brought it to life, and then had somebody try to kill it? So I had that experience working with these different personality types. So working with investors and brokers and all these different people, that was a strength of mine. So those skills transferred into real estate. What I didn't realize at the time was that real estate and multifamily investing, it's a business, just like any other business. Meaning that there's sales, marketing, operations, human resources. I think at the time coming into it, I looked at it as there's construction and property management and leasing and all the legal things, right? I didn't look at it as a business that has a sales team, a marketing team, human resources, operations. And really every business in the world has those components. So if you really break it down to that, that's when I got super comfortable because I'm like, well, I've been doing business for 15 years. I was at General Motors working with the craziest group of people you could ever find. I've worked at advertising agencies where I was solely responsible for driving the bottom line and increasing our scope of works and our revenue, right? So when I was able to pivot that and not worry about what I didn't know from a construction standpoint or what I didn't know from a legalese standpoint or what I didn't know from a property management standpoint, but recognizing that I had the resources around me to answer those questions and fill in the gaps. That's really where I got comfortable, was able to accelerate.
It's a lot there to take in. I think, especially those, who are coming from the W-2 world or coming or looking to transition from one, taking it, whether they're going to move into this full time or not. One of the first things everybody has is a lack of time. And I think we all face that, so right there, you can look to find partners that might be able to have more time than you or more marketing or more investor relations, more operations side of it. So I guess go a little bit into how like you started to feel comfortable and fill out your team and decide what roles people are going to play.
I think one of the key things when you start talking about building out your team, you have to understand the different roles and responsibilities. So there's two levels of team, right? Team is like you and your partner, your business partners. So people are going to be in charge of like finding deals, underwriting deals, getting the capital stack together, qualifying for the loan, all those kind of things, right? And then there are the other people that help make all that happen. Your brokers, your lenders, your property managers, the attorneys, all those different people. So there's two different components to it. The first part, and I think the biggest challenge most people have, especially if you're in the commercial space, and this is really important. If you are trying to invest in larger commercial multifamily, when you hear people say that this is a team sport, you have to take that to heart. Here's what I'm trying to tell you. Even though I committed to working with other people and, trying to scale up, I still felt like I was doing all the work. I wanted to find the deal. I wanted to underwrite the deal. I wanted to walk the property. I wanted to submit the offer. I wanted to qualify for the loan. I wanted to raise the money. I wanted to manage the asset. That's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and it's too much work for one person. I don't care how good you are. You can't be great at all of those different things. Those tasks take a completely different skill set. So if you are trying to do this by yourself in this world right now, where there's so much competition and so much demand, even if you're successful at getting the deal or winning the deal, you're likely going to fail. And the reason I say you're likely going to fail is because it is extremely difficult to be a great asset manager and a great investor relations person and be great at, every other task that comes, all the operation things and human resource things, distributions, accounting. It's a ton of tasks. So from a team standpoint, first of all, open yourself up to truly being a part of a team. And then it's a matter of how do you find these people? Well, masterminds are a great start. If you're a part of a coaching program, connect with those people. If you have a mentor or an advisor, start with those individuals. Ask them, hey, I'm looking to invest here. Do you know anybody who's interested in that? Do you have anybody who's a good person to talk to? Those are great places to start. Okay. So that's what I would do first and foremost, is just really understand the team aspect of being an investor. Second, when it comes to kind of that secondary team, the brokers, the agents, and the lenders and all those people, one of the things you want to understand is, first of all, based on the markets that you're looking at, what's their experience and what's the level of transactions that they do? I will tell you, one area that I wasted a lot of time is working with people who really didn't have the volume of transactions or the experience that I needed to find deals. What I mean there is that, let's say you have a broker you like. It's great. You found this broker, nice broker. You got a good relationship with them. How many transactions do they do in a year? because you need that broker to bring you deals. So if they're not sending deals to your inbox, does it really matter that they're a great broker? They're a great personality and all that stuff, right? So you got to figure out who has the deals. And in a lot of markets, there's a handful of people that have deals that fit the criteria you have. If you're looking at 2 to 4 units, sure, that there might be a lot of people who have 2 to 4 units deals. But if you want a 50 plus unit deal, well, who are the brokers that deal in 50 plus units? What brokerage firms are those? Who are the people you need to connect with? Who does 70% of the business? Who does 20% of the business? If you're spending 80% of your time with the person who does 20% of the deals, you're probably not investing your time the right way, right? Who does the lion's share of the deals? How do you get on their radar? How do you make sure they know what your criteria is, right? So these are kind of little things, the nuances. I'm only doing this for Jerry, but these are the important nuances you got to keep in mind, because you can spend a lot of time investing in different relationships that don't give you any fruit because you're not investing in the right relationships, right? You got to figure out who does what, who has the volume, where's the market at, who has what. So that way you can spend your time accordingly, understanding where those opportunities will present themselves.
It's a great point. At a couple meetups ago, I had a guest, Tenny, and he talked about.
I'm at Tenny.
Yeah, that's right. And he talked about going, direct to like CoStar and looking for the brokers, the top brokers of the year, and going out after those, for that point that you're talking about. Like a large percentage of the volume of deals are done, with just a few brokers. So maximizing your time is an important part of it.
And I think too, with that process, the challenge here, and this is the thing that's maybe difficult for a lot of people. It's a two-way street in commercial real estate, right? I know there's a couple people who said they got some single family experience. The big difference in single family and commercial is everybody in commercial is a shark. Okay, you're not calling somebody who inherited grandma's house and they want to sell it for 60 cents on the dollar. Okay, everybody in the commercial is savvy. You're not gonna, outwit somebody. So when you are going after opportunities, you have to understand that they are interviewing you too. So everything I just said sounds great. The downside is if you don't have any experience, if you're not a credible buyer, they're going to sniff that out and they're going to drill you and ask you questions too. So there are ways you can address that, which is why, again, it's important to have mentors, advisors, partners, and other folks in your corner that can help you navigate those situations. But just understand that, those owners are going to ask questions of you too. It's not just you asking them questions. They want to know who you are as well.
So you're touching on the broker part of it, obviously, where as you're growing in this field, you're going to partner with, as you said, mentors or other operators that have experience that you could also leverage their ability to close when you're going after a deal and talking with a broker. Obviously, there's always two sides. There's finding the deal, and then there's raising capital and closing a deal. So, this will lead into, I guess, some of the branding talk, and we'll spill all your secrets. But, for the multifamily, the business person that's starting this, we hear about know, like, trust. But, I guess talk a little bit about building, the brand and so that you're consistent to potential investors.
Yeah, branding is one of those things that trips a lot of people up. So, I spent, like I said, 15 years of marketing, and I say marketing because there are little nuances to what I was actually doing. But there's advertising, there's marketing, and then there's branding. And the difference is advertising is the messaging that I create and I put out there, right? That's what I say. That's what you see. That's my billboard. That's a banner ad. That's a commercial I create. That's my advertising, right? Marketing is a strategy and all the communications that we're putting out there into the atmosphere. Branding, though, that's how other people view you, right? So when I say Nike, branding is whatever response you have to Nike, whether you think of a quality gym shoe, whether you think of basketball shoes, whether you think of great running shoes, whether you think of Jordan, LeBron, whatever, right? Whatever you feel, that's branding. right? If you feel like, hey, that's a great quality product or whatever else comes with that. The advertisements, the TV spots, the messages that they've created to put in front of you. And then marketing is that kind of holistic approach of everything that they do. So when you talk about branding, I think the important thing is to understand that all of us have a personal brand, because the personal brand is just what other people think of you. If they don't know you as a real estate investor, as a multifamily investor, and if that's the thing you want to be known for, if you want to raise money for deals, but people don't know that you even invest in multifamily, you have not done a good job of branding yourself. Okay. And for a lot of people, there may be some limitations, some hesitation, but you just have to be honest with yourself. If you want people to know you as a multifamily investor and potentially invest with you in your deals, people have to know that you invest in multifamily. You have to let it be known. Now, that can happen organically for sure. Or just like Nike and other big brands, they take their marketing and they try to tell people, hey, here's what we do. Here's what I'm doing. Right. And the more people know that about you and they can see you in a certain light, the easier it's going to be to get to the next phase of that question. So in all of marketing, there's something called a funnel, a marketing funnel. Is I can see a few cameras. I know a lot of people have their cameras off, but either by show of hands or in the chat box, if you know what a marketing funnel is, put a 1 up or put a 1 in the chat box or just throw a finger up or something like that for me. Okay. All right. So see a decent amount of ones up here. Okay. And in the funnel. Okay, great. So marketing funnel. Boom, like this, right? Funnel. All right. So at the very top of the funnel is awareness. Do people know you exist? Is there anybody who has never heard of Nike? Okay. I'm assuming everyone's heard of Nike. So we all know Nike exists. That doesn't mean you're wearing Nikes right now, right? So we're aware of Nike. The next step is consideration. Would you consider buying a pair of Nikes? Maybe you will, maybe you won't, right? Funnel starts to get a little smaller. Awareness, consideration. If you've ever bought a pair of Nikes, that's trial. Okay. So that's our trial funnel. Hey, try my Nikes. I didn't like them more than my Asics, so I'm gonna go back to my Asics, whatever, right? Or I not love Nike, they're my favorite. There's trial. After trial, okay, comes loyalty. Love Nikes, they're my favorite brand, they're comfortable, very stylish, my favorite shoe. That's loyalty, right? So when you think of your funnel, that's what it is. Most people struggle at the very, very top, awareness. Every company, product, service, business, they can't get to you're my favorite. They can't buy your product or service. They can't consider your product or service if they don't know you exist. How am I going to buy something I don't know exists? How am I going to invest with somebody when I don't even know there's an investment opportunity? So it doesn't matter that I know you. Jerry, I know you is great. But if I don't know that you got an investment opportunity or that you invest in multifamily apartments, how would I ever have a chance to invest with you? This is where branding comes into play. Because you have to find ways to tell people what you do. Now, we can get cute with the marketing stuff. I try to just keep this real simple, right? At the very simple level, if people don't know you exist, and I mean your product or service, not you as a person, if I don't know what you do as a product or service and that you have that available, there's no way I'm going to consider it. And then if I know you and I get a sense that you might invest, now there's a perception of, but do I know you in this space? Let's go back to Nike. If Nike came out with a television tomorrow, how many people would buy it? How many people think a Nike television would be a great product? Right? I mean, probably not a lot of people. We see it as athletic gear, shoes, clothes, maybe, sure. Maybe some tech watch or some fit gear, but a TV, I'm not buying a Nike TV. Right? So then there's the perception side. If people know you as an attorney, that's great. Oh yeah, I know Johnny's a great attorney. Yeah, he did my taxes and helped me with my divorce, whatever. Great. Does that mean he's going to invest with you now on a real estate deal? No, they got to get to know you as a real estate person, right? So now you have to transition and let them know, hey, I'm actually doing this too, right? So some people, it'll be a harder transition. And some people, like Jerry, you met me as John, the multifamily investor. So that's what you know. You've heard about John, the marketer, but you didn't meet me when I was a full-time real or marketing executive overseeing TV campaigns. So there's a transition that happens, just like a brand like Apple. Apple has been very seamless in their ability to just expand into technology, but there was a time when Apple was just computers. That's it. And when they tried to come out with the iPod, it's like, what? They're getting into music? This is weird. And then they got into phones. You know how ridiculous it was for them to get into phones when Nokia and BlackBerry and all the other, Samsung was out there, but they did it. And what they did each time, they expanded what people thought of them. So when you think about your personal brand, it's not to erase who you are professionally. It's to expand the way people see you. If you've been as very successful in business or as an accountant or as an attorney, it's not to have people switch and say, oh, John is no longer this, he's now that. Is to expand and evolve. And that's why for me, I talk about my business experience, my business background, because it's extremely relevant to who I am as a real estate investor. I didn't go from marketing to real estate. I went from marketing and understanding, how to build teams, how to understand, putting together a business plan, understanding budgets, to evolving that from doing marketing and campaigns for Nike, Coors Light, Mountain Dew, to now involving that with real estate and overseeing real estate projects and creating marketing initiatives to help me connect with other investors. Right. So I've expanded from just what I was doing on this side to incorporate more. And I think anybody who has professional experience, any kind of successes, can expand in the same way.
Hey, John, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
If how would you explain to us to do that on a daily basis? Because I think it needs to be done on a daily basis. And does an elevator pitch come into that picture?
Yeah, you know what? So I'm really big on continuing to improve yourself. I have a couple of coaches that I work with in addition to me coaching people on real estate investing. I have coaches that work with me. And one of the things that I've been working on is my elevator pitch. And I'm going to give you you might want to write this down because I'm probably not going to say it again. When you're doing your elevator pitch, if you are going through a transition, when you're connecting with people, and you'll pick up on some of these things, you can call out where you were to where you're at now. So Rodney, I can't recall exactly what you were doing before, right? But in my case, if I'm meeting somebody, and let's just say, I'll use Ahmed here, if that's okay. If Ahmed and I are meeting for the first time, I might say, hey, Ahmed, my name is John. I used to work in corporate marketing for 15 years doing advertising campaigns, but now I work with other investors to get passive income. Right. So I've set it up where I explained what my experience is, and I've talked about what I was doing before and what I'm doing now, but I've left it vague enough and short enough where Med can now fill in and ask me a question, right? Because I didn't get into, hey, we buy B-class apartment buildings and blah, blah. No, I didn't get that deep, right? I just kept it high level. So if he's interested or if he wants to know more, he can now ask me a follow-up question. So I think it depends on the interaction, right? Who you're talking to. If you're talking to older colleagues, absolutely. I mean, they already know what you've done. So if they say, hey, what you been up to? Okay, there's your opportunity to say, hey, here's, did that, I left that 3 years ago, and ever since I've been doing X, Y, Z. So I think you obviously want to work on how you make that transition, because some folks will have interest. Some folks won't care at all, and they'll just say, oh, okay, cool. But I think you have to figure out like what is compelling for people. And for a lot of people, it's not the real estate. Most people don't care about the real estate. Right? None of us. I mean, I hope none of us are in love with the bricks that we're talking about. We love the passive income, the flexibility, the freedom, the tax advantages. We love the appreciation, the inflation fighting, right? We love the perks, the benefits of it. The fact that I can pick up my kids from school every single day and I don't have to go punch a clock. I can sit here, my kids come off the bus, I can be here with them. The fact that I can help other families, get passive income, fight inflation, and help them with their financial goals. That's the real perk. It's not the building. No one cares about the actual buildings. So if you can find ways to convey that, that can connect really well with, potential investors. And again, people who may not necessarily have any interest in real estate. I don't have any interest in the stock market, to be honest with you, outside of the fact that I know it can, make money, invest in these companies, right? I don't have to love the stock market to invest in the stock market. I don't have to love real estate to invest in real estate. And I think that's the thing with when you're talking to other people, it's helping them understand those perks, the fact that this is a way to diversify your portfolio, all of those different things, right? If you can convey that in a very concise manner, with a genuine approach, right? I'm not trying to say a sales pitch. I'm talking about I think all of us, listen, it's a Thursday night. It's 8:22 Eastern time. And we're all in a Zoom thing together. You could all be with your families, friends, having whatever. I'm having a drink, but you could all be doing doing something else. You're here because you genuinely believe that real estate investing, multifamily investing can help you, your family, the life you want to create. Right? Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. If you didn't really care about this, you would not take the time out of your evening to be here. So you have to find ways to convey that level of passion to other people. If you love this, love it. And they'll feed it. They'll feed off of it. If this is the thing you're excited about, other people see it. They will feel it. They will know it. They'll ask questions. They may not be ready to invest necessarily, but they can see you love it. They can respect it. And maybe they'll do their own research. Maybe they'll ask you some questions. Maybe they'll dig into it more. But I think you definitely got to find ways to authentically convey what you love about it and be yourself. I find that I think people get too caught up in trying to be perfect or trying to be a guru or trying to be the expert. And this bullshit, man. Sorry, I don't know if I can swear here. I try not to swear. I'm working on it so bad. I promise y'all I am. But people see through that. You are who you are.
One of the things you hear is that people invest in you, not the asset. And that's really true. And when you are looking at branding, one of the things that I did was before I even left my W-2, I already started changing my mental processes to not be that IT guy, but to be a multifamily investor. Changed all my LinkedIn. I don't even mention, other than in my work history, that I did IT. I was a multifamily investor. I introduced myself as a multifamily investor. In my brain, I was already a multifamily investor. And I think that going forward, depending on where, what your goals are, that mental shift is what's going to propel you forward and allow you to craft that speech, if you will, to the person that you meet.
Yeah. And practice it, write it down, say it to yourself and get it tight and get it to the point where it doesn't sound like an elevator pitch. Right. You've just found a way to be more concise in your communication. And the more you do that, the more you understand who you are and how you can help people, the easier it will be for other people to see how you might be a benefit. Hey, Jerry, I don't mean to take over, but is it okay if we just open it up for some questions? I would love to just let people talk and just respond to anything someone wants to say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. And just really, let me reset the room real quick. Also,
sure.
Anyone who came in later, use that chat, drop your information, and don't forget before you go to hit the 3 little dots so you can save it down. But yeah, whoever else, questions, jump in.
And is anyone raising money or looking to raise money for deals soon?
Always raising money, right, John? Never stop raising money.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to get some direct questions. So, but yeah.
Hey, John, it's Matt. I'd love to hear about at some point, I would think, maybe you haven't reached this point, maybe you're approaching this point, but love to hear about your thoughts on at what stage you kind of start building a team. I don't mean the accountants and the brokers and all that, but more of your internal team, whether it's marketing or someone else that sources the deals or someone else that does the underwriting or maybe you self-internalized asset management. Just thoughts about kind of building out the team and the inflection point where you said, okay, now I'm ready to kind of start doing that.
I think there's two things to understand or consider. First of all, you have to know your own goals. Are you trying to just get enough, passive income to, just walk away from your job, or are you trying to build a multi-million-dollar empire, with revenues in millions of dollars each year? Because there's going to be two different ways of doing that, right? You can be very lean and not bring in a lot of overhead and just do a couple deals a year and be okay. Or you can try to build a pretty, substantial business. So your goals are going to be the first thing that you got to get clear. The second thing is really understanding your strengths, your weaknesses, the opportunities. Towards the beginning of the conversation, we talked about building a team. I think partnerships are a great way to start. A lot of people are interested in partnering, so you could get away with that without necessarily paying a salary. Yes, you're giving away more equity, but starting out where you don't have the money to pay somebody $50,000 a year to just analyze deals, it's better to partner with somebody who's willing to analyze deals for free in exchange of equity of a deal that pencils out. So I would say aligned with those strategic partnerships. Again, goes back to the networking. If you're a part of a mentorship group or have a mentor or anything like that, those are the places I would start to try to find some of these people to fill those roles. But that's the first way I would approach it. As far as hiring people out, I think you always want to do two things. One, you can use virtual assistants that are a little less expensive. I know Jerry was talking about that. Jerry and Mark were talking about that a little bit earlier. So that's one way to get started, is you can offload work. If you're going to go with whether virtual assistants or any employees, the key is you have to understand how to communicate the expectations to them. I'm a firm believer in written directions of how to do stuff and video directions that accompany that. I'll give you an example. My podcast has gotten to the point where it is. The only thing I do on the podcast at this point is I record the episodes and I still upload them, which that's the next step. I got to get off the uploading. But then I do the titles of each show. And the reason I do the titles of each show is really it's a personal thing. It's a thing I enjoy. But as a marketer with the amount of experience I have, it's not fair to expect someone else to be able to understand the nuances of what might hook a listener or what might work better for search engine optimization or things like that. But the editing, actually getting it live and all that kind of stuff, I don't do that. But in order to get to the point where it was done the way I want it to be done, I had to list out the specific steps of here's how I've been doing it. Here's a video of how I've done it. If you have any questions based on these two resources I've provided you, reach out, because that means I need to update either the video or the documents. But you have to understand it's a business, right? If you were training a junior associate, you would have to give them a manual. And it's the same thing. If you're underwriting, you need to show people how you underwrite. Where do you find comps? You can't just say, go find comps. No. What comps are you looking at? What's a comp? How is this a comp and that's not a comp? There's a lot of training that needs to take place. So if you're going to hire somebody, you need to be ready to actually double up the work in the interim so you can truly, free up some time. But don't expect just to hire somebody, throw it to them and walk away. Otherwise, you may have failure. But I think if you're starting out partnerships, I'm definitely at the point where we're having a lot of conversations about transitioning things from partnerships to employees. I'm getting ready to hire someone to be my marketing manager. So that's the first like full-time, like local 100% role that we'll have as an employee here. I've been able to use virtual assistants and partnerships throughout, but we're at that point where, again, we've got a lot of things moving where we do need to bring on people to full time. But I mean, the revenue's got to be there, and at the end of the day, just like any other hire, you hire because it's going to make you money, not because it's just work, right? Like for me, it's like hiring this marketing manager. I expect to make about 4 times what I'm going to pay this person in revenue. So, it's missed money at this point that we're missing by not having someone in this role.
So we're at the 8:30 mark. I want to definitely always appreciate your time. So I want to go over the hour point, but we can run it to 8:35 or 5 more minutes. If anybody else has any more questions for John, jump in.
I have a question, please.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me, Jerry?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. John, thank you so much for your insight about everything, to be honest with you. And the not cussing practice, keep going at it. I'm doing the same thing. My son was born last year, and I'm trying not to say any cuss words around the house or outside, and I feel a lot smarter. In approaching brokers and nowadays in the economy, it's been such an obstacle in a lot of our ways who trying to get in the Southeast region, and we are working from New York and Jersey and everywhere else, I used to be in banking. I used to call brokers and let them know, like, listen, I might have clients that might need your services in the future, just to win their hearts and minds, so to speak, so I can build a rapport with them. And later on, I tell them, hey, listen, I can finance in a building for you if you want. And they will come to me. But now I'm on the other side, and I have quit my full-time job recently, and I'm trying to get the brokers to buy into at least answering my phone calls, or at least, for example, give me the time of the day to let them understand what I'm looking for. And I'm trying to represent a company that's looking for, let's say, 80 units and more, but at the same time, let them know if he gets something smaller, I will look at it, particularly with my little partners, so to speak. So 5 to 20, I will look at it. I have not really gotten so much success so far, and I've been doing it for a couple of months right now. Probably the most difficult time in our economy nowadays, But what are your thoughts about this? And I'm a big fan of the elevator pitch. I've used it before in banking, and it works for me. And I want to see your insight on that, please.
Well, 2 things. One, 3 things. One, send me an email. Let's talk offline. I'd love to, maybe dig in a little bit more. I put my email in the chat box there. 2, the irony is I actually don't swear there very often. I only, for whatever reason, it's just late at night in large settings. I don't know what it is. My kids are 5 and 7, so I've had plenty of time to wane down on that. So I'm actually really good most of the time. I don't know what it is about late at night and these kind of settings. And I'm just like, oh, loose lips. Third, to your question, there's a couple of things, and it's tough, but you have to understand that this is a seller's market, and brokers make you get this, you're in banking. Brokers make their money for selling properties. So, in years past, the whole relationship building and niceties and all that stuff, it took you to a decent spot. The reality is right now, a lot of brokers already know who they're going to sell to. And this is the fallacy a lot of people have, is that, if there's a deal that comes on the open market, by the time it comes to you, if you don't have a relationship with that broker, they've probably already identified their short list of buyers. And unless you're about to put in an offer that meets or exceeds their whisper price, you're not really in the running. So that's the challenge most people face. And building that credibility is critical. Jerry, I put together something called the 3 C's. It's actually 6 C's, but the short version is there are 3 C's to attract capital, but also to stand out with brokers and professionals. And the first C is confidence. That confidence is not blind hubris. I'm not talking about listening to whatever guru told you to fake it till you make it. I'm talking about practice. I'm talking about learning. I'm talking about attending these kind of events, listening to podcasts, taking notes, working on your pitch, the type of practice so you can hone your message, your skills, and feel confident in analyzing deals, recognizing the deal, and moving forward if you were to find a deal. That takes real practice. Whether you have experience actually closing deals or not, you got to put in the work so that when an opportunity presents itself, you are ready. Okay. That's the confidence I'm talking about. The second C is credibility. Credibility comes from either the experience you have from another world, your professional experience. Maybe you got some real estate experience. Maybe you were a broker, like you said, you were on the banking side, you were a commercial broker, or maybe you were a lender, whatever it is. What experiences do you have that make you a credible buyer? And if you don't have anything that makes you credible, who on your team has it? Who are your mentors, your partners, your advisors? When you start talking to these people, what makes you credible? What makes you credible to these brokers? What makes you credible to investors? And it's critical because if you don't have any experience, you should be asking yourself this: why the hell would someone invest with me if I've never done a deal? I don't say that to discourage you. I say that to say, solve the problem. If you have no experience, you got to surround yourself with people with experience. So you can say, hey, I've never done a deal, but here's John. This is my mentor. John has done over $100 million in real estate. And here's Tom. Tom is my partner. Tom has done $2 million worth of real estate. So we feel pretty comfortable buying this, $1.5 million, $3 million deal, whatever, right? That's what I'm getting at, is you need to make sure the story you're telling is logical. If you've never done a deal and you're trying to buy a $10 million deal, you look crazy. It's just blind hubris. So credibility is key. The third is connections. So who are you talking to? If you're reaching out to brokers who are the presidents of their firm, they're the managing broker, those things, they're not going to waste their time with somebody who they don't know. They spend their time with people who have bought properties for them. So in that case, what I would suggest you do is go to the associate brokers, the folks who are trying to cut their teeth, make their name, they're hustling, they're going to work a little bit harder, right? Those are the people you want to talk to because they got more work to do. They're going to take the time because they don't have a big black list of investors they've been working with for 15 years. They got 3 people, right? They get the grunt work. So those guys are the ones who are going to be hungry. They'll hustle. You can help them. You guys can help each other, right? You can give them feedback on a deal. Hey, man, I think this is overpriced or blah, 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 whatever, right? But you help each other. The other thing, and the most, almost, baby boy, Jesus, this boy must have a calendar over here. He's got to watch. He's watching me. But the other thing there is that you have to understand how to help those team members because they are team members. And for a broker, I told you they get paid when they close a transaction. And even if you've got a property that's completely overpriced, there are ways. Okay, one second, buddy. There are ways to help that broker even without buying. I'll give you a quick example, right? I got a broker friend in Chicago, good friend of mine. The irony is I've built this relationship for years and I've never bought anything from him. I gave him one of my properties to sell with the intent of being able to buy more properties from him. And I still never bought nothing from him, right? But he's a good friend and we have good conversations. And I remember once he reached out to me, he had a property and I looked at him like, dude, this is like way overpriced. He's like, I know it's overpriced and I know you know it's overpriced. What I need is for someone to tell me in writing that it's overpriced so I can go back to the owner to say, hey, we're not getting any of the offers you're looking for. Here's what I have. I think it's overpriced. We need to bring it down 10%. Right. So you got to really build those relationships. And if you're focused on the relationships, like you can help each other. And like I said, I never bought anything from him, but he's a good friend of mine, man. If I had something in the city or if I knew other people, I'm always easy to reach out to him and say, hey, for this property, reach out to my guy. I think he'd have interest, or such and such is looking to sell their property. I think you'd be great for him. You should talk to them. So if you're truly focused on the right things, helping people, building a business, I think you'll see the results of that effort. But with the brokers, it's got to be about the relationship, but you also have to demonstrate that credibility, that you're somebody worthy of their attention, worthy of their trust. But Nicole reaching out, that's getting nowhere. In fact, if I were you, I mean, look, I lived in Chicago for 8 years when I was starting to invest in Cincinnati. What helped me stand out was when I came to town, I told the brokers, I'm coming to town and I want to meet. Show me whatever you got on the market. Worst case, I'll just come to your office. But I was pretty direct in my intentions. I made my intentions known. I followed up. And I think I stressed out to all of my coaching clients. If you have a broker send you a property, respond. I don't care if it's a piece of shit property in the worst neighborhood that's not in your criteria. You let them know, hey, thank you for sending me this property. Doesn't fit my criteria. As a reminder, here's my criteria. Let me know if you get anything that fits this. But you respond every single time because most people do nothing. You get a deal sent to you, even an e-blast. You get the blast that everybody gets. How many people respond to those blasts? Very few, unless you love it. The difference is, again, if you respond every single time, that broker's like, man, this dude has responded to every deal I've sent him. So when you reach out to say, hey, I like this deal, they're probably going to take you a little more serious than the guy they've never heard from ever in their life.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was John. Lots of nuggets, lots of food for thought. That was awesome. I appreciate your time. I went over and I'm very grateful to have you on. So I'm sure I'll say this for everybody in the room. Thanks for coming on. That was great.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. I put in the chat box, but it was probably like the fourth chat at this point. But we have two things that you can do if you want to follow up with me. One, my podcast is called Multifamily Insights. It's the #1 rated multifamily show. Rodney Thompson is our most recent guest, so check out that episode. And then second, we have a sample deal package on our website. It's at casmoncapital.com/sample deal. And what it does is it will, if you're looking to be active, which I think most people on here are, it will give you a sense of the kind of information to put in the deal package. And if you're looking to be passive, it also gives you information of what to look for in an opportunity. Following up from that, we give a couple of emails that you'll get following that, which will detail the kind of questions you should be asking when you're looking at an investment opportunity. And again, if you're an active investor, this is the kind of stuff you need to prepare for. So you should check that out. I think it's a great resource. We took a lot of time to build it out. It's not a real deal. It's a sample deal. But I think it's a pretty good resource for you. It's casmoncapital.com/sample deal.
Awesome. Thanks you, John.